Hi, Shipra.
Hi, Trisha.
So, I, I was just wondering, you spoke to Steve already?
Yeah, I think he's just pinged me on the message. So
Okay. Oh, I think then we should be good. Mhm.
yeah,
Mm,
but I'm not able to see him.
mm, um, one more question for that poll. I think since people would be okay hopping over from one session to another, right?
Yeah, I'm just Trisha looking for the message he's sending. Where I'm not sure.
Okay.
Send me some message, but where it has gone. I'm just wondering. Are you able to see my message to Steve?
Yes.
Is it coming for
Yes.
everyone? Just let me check.
He he's already uh, on the on the session. I guess I see him in week, right? Um,
I don't know why when I'm typing the message, it goes off.
mm, mhm. I think
Yeah,
that's
is it happening for you?
yeah. I think we can. Okay, trying maybe. Let me turn off my video. Uh, Steve says he's trying to connect to video and audio but cannot. That option is grayed out for him.
Okay. Option is grayed out for him, is it?
Mhm. I had that problem initially. I think what I did was enable it from my browser as well. We give like if we are on Chrome in the settings, we see Steve, right?
If you can please
Can you guys
type that
hear
up.
me now?
Yeah. Hi, Steve. Yes.
Hi, Steve.
Hi,
Oh, okay,
Steve.
you can hear
Can
me
hear
now,
you.
right?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, what's happening here?
So
Okay. All right. I think I have this little thing kept over here. Okay. Fair enough. So this is working. I was really worried that this would be an issue because I think the last time we used the same platform and it was dead slow. I'm just curious. See, as I'm looking, I can see that even there's a lag in my video, and
yeah,
I'm just wondering if I should log in from another computer as well, just in case.
sure, Steve. You can try that
Uh,
because your video is becoming still sometimes.
yeah, I know. Um, Damn, I'm I'm losing time. I'm like, I'm literally like,
It's fine, Steve. We still have 2 minutes.
okay.
So, Steve, you like to take questions in the last or
Yeah, I think that would be better. I would
online?
prefer that the questions are put in chat, and then we can try to address the questions later on. So
Sure.
that'll be much more efficient.
So, Steve, just to give you a time check, so now after 45 minutes, if I come on video, will that be fine for you?
Yeah, that is fine. Yeah. So I've timed the delivery for 45 minutes, but just in case if I go up, it's yeah. Just let me know.
Yeah, sure. So I'll switch on my video and then it will be a kind of a
Yeah.
time check for you. Yeah.
Okay. So I am going to log in from another computer as well.
Yes. Yeah, I think one person joined and he left. Yeah, I think people have started joining in now. So we
Okay.
can just have a check, right? So Steve, right now, nothing is visible on your camera. It's like a blank screen which is coming.
Yeah, that's because
Yeah, no, I
I've
can
done
see.
that, and I need to switch this off.
Yeah, your video is much better now.
Yeah.
To probably use laptop. And I'm trying to switch the video off here. Okay, so I
Okay.
think this is. I just need to bring the mural up to bring the mural.
Oh, we have Victor here itself.
So Steve, if you want, we can have a quick check with your screen being shared, and then if you say me a go ahead, then I'll start with the welcome, and you can take over from there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1 second. And sharing. So screen share. Okay. Can you see
Can you
my
see my
Okay.
Okay.
Is the echo coming from my
Coming
end
from
or
my end
from
or from
one of your
one of
end?
your end?
Come from your end, Steve.
Yeah. Am I visible?
Yes, sure. Fine.
Yeah, I'm kind of eliminating the source of all echo from my end, so I'm just logged in from my one computer right now. You can see my screen. So what are the things that you want to do? So share my screen. Okay, hold on. So I thought I
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
and share. So let me know if you can see it, because it doesn't tell me whether I'm sharing or not. Oh well, it actually says it's. Oh, so window. Interesting. So this is. Okay, it should share my screen now, and I'm hoping that it's working fine. Yeah, I can see it on the other computer. It's showing up.
I'm able to see.
Is it everything's coming fine at your end? Okay, cool. So I think we can start, right? Yes. Trisha.
Yes, Steve, please go ahead.
Okay, all right. Do we have enough folks here? I think.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah. Okay. Let's start. Okay. So we've utilized some time now. Good morning or good evening, guys. My name is Steve Matthew. I'm actually joining you guys today from the US. And today, the topic that I'm going to talk about is, are you really using an MVP, or minimum viable product? The reason I selected this topic is because I've seen that in the industry quite a lot of times. This particular term is used, and it is not used in the right way. So I thought that by doing a short talk about it and helping people understand how this technique can actually be beneficial in your product development strategy, it would be a good thing to share with the community. So that is the reason why I selected this topic. We will be going through a lot of interactive exercises and debriefs as well, just to understand where we stand, where we stand together in terms of our common understanding of certain terms. So with that said, the first thing that I want to introduce you guys to is the first activity, which is basically what is a product. Have you guys received the Bureau link by any chance? If not, I want to share that.
No, Steve, I think you can share it on the chat window.
Okay, so let me put that here. So in the chat. Let me know if everyone can access it. So I think once people start joining, I should be able to see them joining here. Yeah, so I think that participants are slowly joining. I can see that. So as you guys are joining, the ask of this particular activity is basically to share your understanding of what a product is. So pick any sticky. I'm going to put like a 2-minute time box. And what we're going to do is put your understanding today of what a product is, and then we'll move on from there. And if you want more stickies, you can just copy and paste them, or you can go to the left side of this mural window and you can select a new sticky. But I've put a lot of stickies there so that it's easy for you to, you know. And what I'll also do is I'll ask you guys to follow me. That'll make things easier. So once again, the idea behind this activity is to share your understanding of what a product is. I'm seeing that people are coming onto the mural. Are you able to edit on the stickies? Are you able to type on the stickies? Let me just check the
So
settings
they're
right
not
now.
able to edit, Steve. Yeah.
Okay.
So Steve, they
I know the setting here, and I'm trying to figure that out from. Yes, here it is. So workspace members can edit. Sorry, I should have changed this. Can edit, and you should be able to edit now. And so I'll put that time box again. Sorry. Are you guys able to edit now? Can you please check? Still no? That's interesting. See, it says 20 people have access. Can edit.
I'm still not able to edit.
I'm changing everyone to edit. Okay, hold on. So this will solve the problem. Okay, this will definitely solve the problem. So now you guys should be able to edit. Yep, I can see people moving the stickies. Yep, okay, good. All right. Sorry for that confusion. So I will put the timer back on for 2 minutes. Okay, we have less than a minute left. I see different opinions coming out on the screen, so that's good. All right, time's up. Let's look at some of the comments here and let's try to understand why we did this activity. So what I'm seeing over here is that many people have written that it's a solution to a problem. Some have mentioned that it's a service to a solution. It has a lifetime, defined features. It is a result of something. Someone's mentioned here that an article or article process or service that provides desired utility to the one who uses or consumes it. Okay, that's good. Um, Better pricing options to solve a problem. Anything which solves someone's problem is a product. Okay, that's a very simple sentence answer to the question. Works reliably. All right. So there are some really good useful pieces of information here. So what I'd like to do is the reason we did this activity is to baseline what our understanding of a product is. So I'm going to give a definition of what a product is, and then we're going to tie that back into the concept of a minimum viable product. So understanding what a product is important. So what is a product? Um, so a product is anything. It can be anything. It could be services, it could be goods. But the important factor to remember is that a product is something that delivers value. Second, a product has a defined boundary, meaning when you take a product, it is utilized for a specific task, and beyond the scope or that boundary of that task, that product has no function. It can be matched or paired with other products, but the singular definition of that product or the boundary is the actual scope of the product. Then the next thing is a product addresses some need. As many of you rightfully mentioned, it does address a need. Now, the next thing is that it has known stakeholders or customers, meaning it could be either people who are internally using the product, for example, like in an organization, or it could be somebody who is actually manufacturing the product and is aware of their customers. And finally, a product can be the result of an experiment. Okay, so all these factors are essential in understanding what a product is. Now, typically, when we talk about product development as a whole, product development goes through some generic steps, and these generic steps are listed over here. Typically, it starts with idea generation, screening, and all these sequential steps until commercialization and launch. But the disadvantage of this approach is that as it goes through each phase and each stage, it takes a lot of time. What happens if market conditions change? What if, after you release the product, nobody wants it? So in light of that, this concept of MVP actually emerged when we were talking about lean startups. Startups don't have the kind of flexibility or the money to spend a lot of time, uh, building something and then realizing that a product is not successful and losing all that money. So from there emerged the concept of MVP, or minimum viable product. But before we get into what an MVP is, or some more history behind the lean startup and what happened over there. The next thing that I'd like to do is baseline our understanding of what you think of what a minimum viable product is. Think of also what is the difference between minimum viable product, minimum marketable product, or sometimes you also hear minimum marketable feature. So I'm inviting you to the screen, or if you're following me, you should see this section. I want you to put your thoughts onto these stickies, saying, what is your understanding of a minimum viable product today? What is your understanding of minimum marketable product, and similarly minimum marketable feature? At a bare minimum, what's the difference between MVP and MMP? Two acronyms that we commonly hear in the industry. So I'm going to put 3 minutes for this activity, and let's see what comes up. Okay, I'm seeing some ideas coming in. In between, I got a comment that people are not able to hear me. Is it that one person who's not able to hear me, Kushbu? Or is everyone else not able to hear me? Okay, thanks, Trisha. Right, we have less than 30 seconds. So if you folks are putting in their thoughts, just try to wrap it up. All right, we are almost close. We just have 1 second left. And all right, so I see a lot of good comments here, and I think this is the kind of discussion I wanted to come up from this activity. So let's just zoom in here and let's see what we have. So we have some folks saying that MVP covers basic and necessary features of the product. MVP is a prototype or design sketch, can be used by alpha users. That's about minimum marketable product. So MVP is a prototype or design sketch. MMP is used by alpha users, and MMF is add-on features. Okay, close. MVP is the bare minimum required to solve the problem. MVP is the same solution with some value additions. Again, close touches the concept, and there's a gray area there. Um, so I'm also seeing this one comment here, which is this sticky, which says MVP is minimum viable product outcome of a sprint, and MMP is that which will start generating revenue. So I agree with the MMP is something that will start generating revenue. Is minimum viable product an outcome of a sprint? Possibly, and so that answer is very close, but we'll find out what it's all about. Let me see what other uh, things have come up here. So MVP is must functionality for which the product has been launched. Okay. Um, Someone mentioned that MVP is minimum functionality. Okay. And MVP is also a product with enough features to attract customers and validate the product idea. Now, yeah, so this one has something correct there, that it is to validate a product idea at an early development phase. I think this definition here is the closest, but let's see. All right. So good, a good baseline there for what our understanding of MVP, MMP, and MMF, common acronyms we hear in the industry. So let's talk about a simple concept called build, measure, and learn. So I mentioned that this concept of minimum viable product came from Lean Startup, and specifically it came from the book called The Lean Startup by a guy called Eric Ries. And in that, he introduces a concept called build, measure, learn feedback loop. And the reason why he introduces this is basically he says that, when you come into product development, you go through these phases to build an MVP. You measure what that product is, you measure the reaction from that product, you collect data, and then you learn from it. And once you learn what is happening, then you can either choose two options. You can continue to move forward with it or persevere with it, or you have the option to pivot. Now, persevering is possibly considered in the positive light, and pivot is usually considered in the negative light. But pivoting is also not a bad strategy. Sometimes pivoting actually will help you move in the right direction. So do not think that just because you're pivoting, it's a bad thing. So essentially, you want to go through this loop, and you want to come to a conclusion whether you should move forward with product development or you should consider a different strategy. So this is the build, measure, feedback loop. Why this is important, or why I had to introduce this concept, is because I wanted to show the exact definition of minimum viable product, which I've captured directly from the book. So the definition of minimum viable product, okay, is that the MVP is that version of the product that enables a full turn of the build measure loop with the minimum amount of effort and the least amount of development time. So that is key. That aspect of this definition is key, which is basically minimum amount of effort and the least amount of development time. I'll add one more thing to this. It is also the least amount of money you can spend. Again, because when you talk about lean startups, they don't have that kind of money to throw away. So every decision that they make has to produce value. They have to be very aggressive in their strategy and how they use money to build products. Because if they build a product which is going to take a long time to reach in the hands of the customer, and if the customer is not seeing value, you lost that much money, and that is not an outcome that particularly startups want. So, what is the focus of MVP and MMP and MMF? So that is what we're going to talk about now. So minimum marketable feature or minimum marketable product are almost the same thing, just that the difference is when you talk about MMF, it is probably just a singular feature, or sometimes a singular feature can be a product itself. Okay, MMP means that there could be potentially multiple features, but they're kind of like very closely related concepts. It's just how you look at it. If a single feature delivers a product, then technically you can call it an MMP. If a single feature or if multiple features are delivering a product, it is still an MMP. But if you add on additional features to it, maybe at that point you can say it is an MMF. But the key difference is that when you talk about MMF or MMP, it will produce value to the user. The focus of the focus of MMP and MMF is to generate money and to deliver value to the user. But the focus of MVP is different. The focus of MVP is validated learning and using the least amount of time and effort, right? That is the difference. That is the key difference between what MVP is and MMP or MMF is. And many times, what we in the industry call MVP is probably not MVP, it's actually MMP or MMF, right? So that is something that this is what I wanted to introduce, and this is the change, or this is the definition that I wanted to tie back into what we baselined earlier. So an MVP is not necessarily, and here are something that I want to say, call out, is that an MVP is not necessarily the following. So um, let me bring that up. We commonly think of MVP as creating minimal products. So an MVP is not about creating minimal products, and it is not necessarily the smallest product imaginable. So key learning. Okay. Second, hold on a second, I'm having issues unhiding it. Yeah, an MVP is not a set of features selected for a release. If you're talking about a set of features selected for a release, most likely you're trying to generate revenue. And in that case, what you're probably doing is probably a minimum marketable feature or a minimum marketable product, not MVP. Similarly, an MVP is not a minimum marketable feature. Actually, this is a gray area, because there is a possibility that sometimes your MVP can be it, but it is not with the intent to become an MMF or MMP. Eventually, down the line, it may morph into that, but its intention is not the same thing. So that is the key distinction to have there. It is, but if you look at it directly, MVP is not equal to MMF or MMP. It is not a partial product. Again, when we are looking at our baseline, some comments or some people, or how we identify MVP is that sometimes it's a partial product or bare minimum functionality, or just enough features. So it's not a partial product. And finally, an MVP is not a product with defects or incomplete work. Quality does matter. And with the subject of quality, what I would say is that it is the amount of money you want to put into quality. Sometimes what you're doing in terms of, and what the reason I'm saying this is because I'm going to introduce some MVP techniques later on, and you will see that sometimes it depends on the amount of money you want to spend, whether you want to have a high quality MVP or a low quality MVP. But quality is definitely important. If your MVP is going to affect somebody in some way, in a negative light, then yes, quality does matter. It should not endanger anyone. So that is an important factor to consider. Hope you're following me so far. I know that I'm moving a little fast, just because of the amount of time we have, but with this, I'm hoping that the idea of what an MVP is becoming more clear. And here are some guidelines that I want to share when it comes to identifying what an MVP is. So first, number one, what I want to share is that when you talk about MVP, you're talking about building with a focus on maximizing learning and or validating assumptions. So the reason you're doing it is basically you're having a hypothesis. You want to validate the hypothesis, and that will lead you to, whether you want to continue with that hypothesis or whether you want to turn direction. Secondly, you have um, this is very important. It is when you talk about MVP, it is the minimum amount of effort and development time. Now, in some contexts, it could be that the amount of time you spend is more, but always remember that the more time you spend, you're also burning that much money. So again, the idea comes from startups. So focus on keeping costs down, keeping the effort down is important. So when you talk about MVP, that is the focus. And I think I didn't mention this, but when we talk about minimum viable product, the thing is not that it is minimum, but it's actually minimum viable. If you ask me what that means, it means that is this product even viable in the market? If I release this, do people want to pay money for it? Because if people don't want to pay money for it, then I'm wasting my time. So the focus is not on the minimum, but it's actually on minimum viable. The viability is the important part of MVP. Slightly off tangent, but I want to definitely add that into the conversation so that you guys are aware of it. Um, so money, rewards, recognition should not be the primary goal of an MVP. When we talk about an MVP, the focus should be on learning. The focus should be on learning. And finally, um, how much are you willing to lose to reduce risk for a product nobody wants? So as you build MVPs, yes, there is going to be some cost associated with it. So getting into it, like I said, your focus is to learn. So what is the bare minimum amount of money you want to, put out there, and see if it's a loss, it's a loss. You just have to accept that. But it is your the focus here is to learn in the process, and you'll see how people use very simple techniques to reduce their cost. There's always a cost, but people use different techniques to reduce cost to understand whether they want to actually move forward or not. And so with that, we're going to segue into what are the different types of MVP techniques. And this is going to be an interesting one. This is where you're going to understand um, it is not a partial product, it is not a set of features, but actually MVP means a set of techniques that you can apply to understand if your product is even viable. So the first technique in the first type of MVP technique is a concierge MVP. When you talk about concierge MVP, you can think of Airbnb. So what happened with Airbnb? These guys decided, hey, you know what? There are these people who are coming from conferences. They don't have hotels to attend the conference. So let's do one thing. Let us create a hypothesis that if we provide air beds and breakfast to these people, they will come. They will actually pay us money to use the airbed and breakfast. That was their hypothesis. What did they do? They just put a notification on Craigslist. If I remember right, they put a notification on Craigslist saying that those who cannot find a hotel reservation for this particular conference, you can consider, using our. We have airbeds to provide, and we can provide you hot breakfast. And guess what? People actually decided to take that offer. So minimum viable. It was a minimum viable concept. It was a hypothesis that they validated. Very little development. What? Just posting on Craigslist practically costs nothing, right? And so they did that. The concept became successful, and they again started to do similar experiments. And today, Airbnb is what you see today. So that is a concierge MVP. In a concierge MVP, basically the end user knows that they are working with another end user or the provider in this case, and the provider is actually providing a concierge service for the user. That is why it's called a concierge MVP. The next type of MVP is called a piecemeal MVP. So piecemeal MVP, a good example is Groupon or Spanx. Spanx is a kind of slimwear product that typically women use. Um, uh, so the if I remember the story right, when the founder of Spanx decided she wanted to use a particular piece of garment, she actually used an existing garment. She cut the legs and she used that, and she got the idea from that. So that is why it's called a piecemeal, because you're using an existing product to create a new kind of product. So another good example is Groupon, and in Groupon, just so that I remember what all products they used. They used FileMaker, Apple Mail, or back in the days they had Apple Mail, and WordPress. Most of these things I think are free. So they used all of these things, they combined it together, and they created Groupon for selling, vouchers or coupons to get like reduced prices at certain places. So that approach of using existing technology, which costs you nothing, to create a minimum viable product is called a piecemeal MVP, or this technique is called a piecemeal MVP. The next type is called a landing page. A landing page MVP can say buffer. Essentially, that is something like, oh, coming soon, and people are coming onto that page. Typically, a landing page is on its own is not very helpful. But if you're monitoring site traffic, you can see if your landing page is actually helping people, is actually generating interest in the product. And I'm actually going to walk you through one right now, but I need to just finish the rest of the different types. Another type of MVP is called a video MVP. Dropbox used this approach to sell their idea to their clients or their investors. At that point of time, they did not have the actual product. They used animations and they created a video to sell the idea of the product. In fact, if you want to see the actual minimum viable product for Dropbox, it is there in the section. If you can go into the outline, I've put a section called some useful references. Um, so I'm just gonna go quick tangent. So there's a section here called useful references, and here you should see the example of the Dropbox MVP. So I put the link also over there. If you guys want to check the actual video, the concept of a video MVP, just go there, look at it, and you'll see how they created an MVP for Dropbox. The next type of MVP technique is called Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz, the name of the technique comes from the book Wizard of Oz, and it comes from that character, the wizard. I think it was called the Great Wizard or something. And basically, what it says is that, or the idea is that, when Dorothy and her companions saw the wizard in appearance, what was happening was it was the kind of projection this person was doing was that of a powerful wizard. But in reality, there was a curtain, and behind the curtain, there was just an ordinary human being. So again, a little bit of history there, just to understand where the name comes from. But I highly encourage you to just Google what Wizard of Oz MVP is and why it's called Wizard of Oz MVP. You can even look at the book called Wizard of Oz to understand the reason why that name came up. I will actually be showing you the video. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me show you what the Wizard of Oz MVP looks like. Now, a question I commonly get here is, what is the difference between Wizard of Oz and actually, let me play the video first and then I'll address that question. So I am going to open this YouTube page. Check out this verb. And I'll just wait for that ad to complete. Train stop, please. Okay, so 659. Oh, okay. You can only see the mural screen. Okay, hold on. Let me. Says, let me reshare my screen 1 second. Okay, the whole thing's shared, but it's not working for some reason. Okay, so let me see if this works. Hold on a second. Okay, so I think you can see this YouTube video.
So this is just coming, Steve. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
we can see now.
And yeah, I can share the link if you want.
So Steve, you can share in the chat
Yeah.
the link. Yeah.
Yeah. So here, what you can see is, so I'm going to play it from the beginning. I hope the audio comes out fine. If not, it's a very short 20 second video.
Train stop.
Get out, please.
Okay, so 45959.
Okay, so what did you observe there? On the front, it looks like you have an ATM machine, which means that it's just showcasing that, oh, we have a high-tech system in the front or high-tech website, whatever. But in the background, what is actually happening is that someone is actually manually doing all this stuff. So the front is, so this is why it's called the Wizard of Oz MVP, because here the effort is manual to reduce cost, but the front end is, it looks like it is really polished and well. So they only spent money for the front end. That is the reason why this kind of MVP technique exists. And a good example of this is Zappos. Zappos started off in the same manner where they used a website, but in the background, what they were doing is, essentially fulfilling the orders manually. Okay, so let me bring my share back. And so that is one type of MVP technique. The other MVP technique is a smoke test. The smoke test MVP works like this, where you see coming soon, pre-order, etc. Usually it's in the form of a button or something like that. So typically people combine the landing page MVP with the smoke test, or maybe you can put the landing page smoke test Wizard of Oz together and you can create an MVP. So that is the idea behind a smoke test MVP. So, in the spirit of time, I want to actually walk you through another example of this landing page MVP, so you can see how they're using it in real life. And I apologize in advance for the amount of times I have to switch, because I cannot share for some reason my entire screen. So I have to share individually the tabs for some reason. So what I'm going to share here is something that I pre-searched, and this is regarding a vehicle called the Hummer. GMC manufactures this vehicle, and this vehicle, when it was produced in the what you call the petrol or diesel version, was a discontinued model. It was used by the American military, and to be honest, it is a gas guzzler, and you lose a lot of money. So not a very common vehicle, but GMC introduced the electric version of this, and it has generated a lot of interest. So how did I come across this? Not that I was looking for a really expensive vehicle, but I was randomly on Facebook and I saw this thing which said, "Oh, introducing something," and so I clicked on that, and it took me to this page. So this is a landing page. This is a landing page, and I'm seeing all these things over here, and I'm like going through it. So GM can essentially monitor site traffic to see how many people are actually coming to this page and looking at their vehicles. So I was like, okay, I'll go and check what this particular vehicle is all about. And before I do that, you can also see that they have a video of what the interior of the vehicle looks like and how this vehicle is performing, and etc. etc. So this is like the concept of a video MVP, where you're getting kind of like an idea of what the vehicle is. This is probably animation. And again, this is probably animation from what it looks like, but it could also be that GM has produced one or two of it just for demo purposes. But the reason why I say demo purposes is you'll see it in the next screen. So what happens when you click on Reserve SUV? Okay, when you click on Reserve SUV, you will see that um, there are different versions of this vehicle, which I'm trying to scroll down. And so you have your landing page, you have your video MVP, and you have what is called as your smoke test MVP. Reserve, this button is essentially your smoke test. Why? Because look at when these vehicles will actually come. You have to reserve, or you have to pay for it now for you to actually get this vehicle either in 2023 or in 2024, which is almost a year from now or maybe 2 years from now. Why would a company do that? Well, there could be several reasons, like if they don't have enough production, or they don't want to mass produce this vehicle because this vehicle is pretty expensive, like 84,000. Oh, that's ridiculously expensive, right? So it is. They don't want to mass produce these expensive vehicles, so they're seeing how many people will actually reserve or actually pay for the product. And you see how the MVP techniques are actually coming into life. Simple web page, simple button, making understanding customer behavior, looking at whether customer will pay for this. So this is how they've potentially built an MVP. So yeah, I think this was a really good example, and I thought I'll share it with you guys in this conference. But with that, I think we can move on. And Trisha, I just want to check if I still have time. If not, I think we can wrap up.
So, Steve, I think you can take another 2 minutes and then we
Okay.
can have questions here.
Um, Technically, what I wanted to do next, and I'll share with you, is to apply the concepts. What I typically do here is to introduce a fictitious use case, and I'll invite you guys over here. And I want you to apply the concepts that you learned, and I want you to create the kind of MVP you would create. So if you are the product owner for, let's say, an eyewear company, and if I'm trying to create a new kind of eyewear that will show you, it'll have a camera, it'll show you, you kind of have this projected screen, which will, or well, not projected screen, kind of like heads-up display that will show you Google Maps when you wear the glasses. How would you create an MVP to market to your target audience? So I'm inviting you guys, we'll put like 5 minutes on the clock, or let's say 3 minutes. Share your thoughts of how you develop an MVP here, using the concepts you learned, the different kinds of MVPs, landing page, Wizard of Oz. Can you create an MVP over here? Just you don't have to create the actual web page, but what are the techniques you would use? That those techniques will kind of like drive, go into your actual MVP. So I don't see anyone coming here and adding their thoughts or.
So, Steve, is it any link to be shared?
No. This is just an activity. I wanted to check if people can apply the concepts that they've learned of what an MVP is. This is just a fictitious use case. So how would you as a product owner build an MVP, or what are some of the MVP techniques you can use for a product like this is the question.
So yeah, so probably we can have the answers in the chat. You think about.
Yeah, if working on Mural is too slow, sure. Okay, potential
So
customer survey. Okay, someone mentioned landing page, video, smoke screen. Okay. Pile says videos. Okay, so you're using the video MVP concept. Okay, fair enough. Prototyping. Okay. Yeah, and Tushar, I kind of agree with you on that. Like, yeah, these concepts are probably different from what is used to, and you know, right. So Prashanti says mock visuals. Okay. Yes, mock visuals are part. So you can say, I think it's kind of like a very similar to landing page, I guess. Um, so I liked some of the answers that came in the chat. So landing page video, using a. So I believe it was. Let's see. It was uh, Baker bin Saad. He mentioned landing page, video, and smokescreen. Very good. It was the simplest concept ever. Create a landing page, put images of your sunglass, the kind of sunglass you're trying to sell. If you have a video or an animated video, use that, and also create a smoke screen saying, okay, do you want to pre-order now, or do you want to reserve it now, something like that, and see how many people will actually click on it and who are willing to put their credit card information to purchase it. That will show you, that'll give you enough data to see that you have generated enough interest and therefore created a minimum viable product. So with that, I'm going to conclude this session. And I'm open for questions if there is any. But I hope
yeah,
this,
so,
I hope this
so thanks,
session has
Steve.
value to you.
Yeah, so Steve, thanks for those insights on what is MVP and different types of MVP. So yes, we do have couple of questions in question and answer tab. So
Okay.
is from Ramya, and her question is: any similar techniques for HDD, which is hypothesis driven development, before we go with MVP? So any
Hypothesis
similar
driven.
techniques for HDD?
See, I wouldn't say is there any similar technique. These are actually techniques. These are actually techniques that you use. So when you say hypothesis-driven development, if you are using a hypothesis, how do you validate that hypothesis? You have to use some kind of technique to validate. So if you let's take the example of the same thing, Airbnb. Their hypothesis was that people would pay for staying on an airbed and homemade breakfast. That's your hypothesis. Now, how do you move forward with that? You basically put an ad on Craigslist and see if people are willing to pay for it using a smoke screen technique, right? Or basically emails. So that if it is generating interest and people are drawn towards your product, which means that you're going in the right direction. That is how you would use it. So the concept of MVP is how do you validate learning? Hypothesis is the first part. Like I said, in that build measure loop, the first part is you have an idea. how do you take that idea and you build something quickly so that you can go through that loop fast? I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Steve. At least I got an answer. Yes. And
Okay.
the other question is from Vishnu Prasad, and he's asking, "Have read somewhere about email MVP. So if you
Yes.
can share your thoughts and opinion on it, Steve."
It's exactly what it says, basically. So Groupon is a good example of that. They actually used to send emails out to people. When they did all that, so remember how I said that they used three existing products. They used FileMaker, they used Apple Mail, and they used WordPress. So they used Apple Mail to send out these coupons to people via email, essentially. But they finalized they stitched everything together using those other tools, and that's how they communicated with users. Today, I think Groupon, you have to register for it, and they automatically send you emails. So, well, now I'm sure they have a more automated process. They've invested more money into it because of its success. So, email MVP is exactly as it is: sending an email, seeing if it generates interest. And I hope that answers your question there.
Steve, other question we have from Ramya. In fact, we have two questions from Ramya. So, how can we claim a MVP successfully implemented in terms of success criteria?
Success criteria, good question. So the idea behind, and that's what I said. The MVP concept stands for minimum viable. Minimum. So the viability is what you're trying to aim for. So if you are creating a product, or if you're putting an idea out there. So let's take the example of the electric cars that I'm talking about. No, you don't have to focus on Hummer or anything like that. Even if you take your most famous Tesla, right? When Tesla came into being, obviously you could not get the cars for a really long time. But the idea was, are people willing to pay for it? So when people actually hit the reserve button and they put their credit card information, put like $2,000, $3,000 down, and there is no refund for that money. So people have put a commitment there. If you see 1,000 users committing $3,000, that shows that is data for you to say that yes, there is an interest in my product. My product is minimally viable, and that is how you determine success criteria.
And I think
And
some relatable question, can we validate a hypothesis without an end user?
sure, you can. Without an end user, you don't have a product. So remember, that's why we talked about product in the beginning, right? A product, we told about these certain things of what is a product, why are we looking at product. So product has known stakeholders. So if you're developing a product and there's no end user, then why are you spending money, right? So yes, there will be some kind of a user, or it can maybe not be a user. It can be benefiting somebody. It could be benefiting society as a whole. So somebody or something is actually benefiting from a product. So it may not necessarily be a singular person or a singular persona. It could be something else also. So I hope that answers your question there. But yes,
So, Steve, I
possibly
think
you
there
can.
are two, three questions more, but in interest of time, I'll take one last question from Tushar. What
Okay.
could be an MVP helpful for me for an idea which I want to develop, but afraid to step upon it? Like types of MVP and how to drive it. So, I think this we already discussed, but still, if you have certain thoughts on it.
When you say you're afraid to step up on it, are you afraid to lose money? If it is about losing money, then I'll tell you my own personal example that I had to develop an app, and obviously I didn't have the skill to develop it. I had to find someone to do it. Obviously, I didn't have any other choice but to invest a certain amount of money and say, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. If this works, if people are going to show interest, then good for me. I'll continue putting more money into it. If not, the maximum I'll lose is X amount of money. So that depends on your risk tolerance. So based on my risk tolerance, that's how I've approached it in the past as a product owner. So yeah, I hope that gives you, yeah, you have to take a leap of faith. Yeah, some amount of courage you have to show when you make those hypotheses or those assumptions that yes, people want this product. And that's the best answer I can give for that question.
And Steve, how long will this mural link be open for the participants?
I'll keep it open for, I would say, a month or so before I switch off. Yeah. I mean, I've shared the PPT version of this, which contains some of the same concepts. I mean, well, not everything in here, but the key concepts are still in the PowerPoint. But if you want me to download this and share this as a PDF, I can do that as well. Does that answer that question? Anything else? Trisha, Chopra? Are you guys still there?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, now you're audible. So
I
I
think,
think
yeah,
I think
some,
we can go,
yeah.
right. I can take leave, right?
So yes, I request everyone to please give a poll for your session,
Okay.
and we already have the remaining sessions open. So
Okay.
please vote for the session before you leave. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Bye.